I actually don't know what day it is since I am lost in the Kafka-esque nightmare that is the current quarantine, but whatever it is. Actually, wait a minute. It's Earth Day. Yay, Earth Day. Welcome to the Sunshine State Happy Hour, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com and the Florida Beer Podcast. I'm Dave. I'm incredibly tired because I've been chasing after the tiny blonde hurricane that is my 4-year-old. Steve is on the chat as well. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Dave. How's it going today?
Okay, you can just go ahead and drink instead of saying hi. That's fine. That works for me.
My stream's lagging a little bit too, so.
And then we are okay. Nice, thank you. Gotcha. Well, it should be all that. It's all that Twitch playing that you're doing later.
Yeah, I'm sure my fiber internet's really bad.
And then we are being joined all the way from Nashville. Yeah, we're really lagging. Oh, it's going to be a great show. We are being joined all the way from Nashville, Tennessee by Ryan Gossett. Find him on Instagram, The Pursuit of Hoppiness. Make sure to get it correct because there are some others that have similar names. Ryan, how are we doing?
Good. You know, just one day at a time, one beer at a time. But it's interesting to kind of see the beer landscape both throughout the country and here in Tennessee, just in the midst of all this chaos, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So since we are taking it one beer at a time, what is the one beer that you are drinking? Brian, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Well, I brought a couple, but the first one I am drinking on is Lovebird from Jackalope here in Nashville. It is their spring-summer seasonal, just a raspberry, strawberry, wheat. It kind of blew up for them, which is really cool. It started as something super small, just like a one-off years ago, and now it's like a 9-month seasonal that they just continually rotate in during warm months, and it flies off shelves.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen Jackalope. I think I've tried a couple of their beers. Nice. I don't know if I tried that one, but it's nice to see the breadth of beers that you distribute in the Nashville area. Some stuff that I'm used to from like Caldera, which is amazing because you just don't get it down here in Florida, but they seem to be all over everywhere else. And I'm very well versed with them.
Our founder of our distributor company became good friends with those guys, and so we get a drop from them maybe every 2 months of just fresh Caldera IPA. And when that beer is fresh, it can stand up against pretty much anything, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because my wife went to grad school in Ashland, which is where they have their tap room and brewery and everything. And they have an ice cream stout, like literally the stout and the ice cream right there in the tap room. It's absolutely fantastic. Steve, what are you doing? What you drinking?
Drinking my Three Daughters Juicy Pale Ale.
Nice. You working through that little drop?
Oh, it's perfect after the hot-ass day that I had today.
Yeah, you've been working outside all day. I don't blame you at all. I kind of went a little bit different since Ryan is here. The last time I was in Nashville, I found Mantra Artisan Ales.
Nice. And
had to come back with some of the Japa Chai Milk Stout, which is just incredible. They are one of the best breweries I've ever been to, Steve. You would absolutely love them. Just anything you want, they have, and they do it really, really well.
Nice.
So.
Yeah. It's chef owned, actually, which is pretty cool. Manit Chauhan, famous chef, is one of the founders of that brewery. And
it makes a lot of sense.
Quality, which is awesome.
That makes a lot of sense. That actually, now I understand, which is kind of perfect. Oh my gosh. So how is everything going in Nashville and Tennessee? What are you seeing on the streets? Because I know you were saying things are a little bit different from you since you are a wholesaler, so you don't actually have to deal with the beer as much as you pick it up and give it to the people that are then going to go and sell it.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
We, from a company standpoint, we've kind of flipped a lot of our like modeling just versus like chain and grocery sales versus like independent, so bars, restaurants, smaller liquor stores. And luckily enough, we're a small enough company that a lot of people can kind of flex different roles. So we've been able to keep everybody employed, which one is awesome. and keep people on the streets that are safe and able to do that. And it's just interesting. Off premise is up pretty much across the board from a company, and then grocery and things like that are just like nuts. So we have a lot of people that are helping merchandise, grocery to kind of fill hours in and gaps like that. But it's just interesting to see how easy it is to get beer delivered to people now, and how quick the beer board in our county and everything was like, yeah, just deliver it. It's totally fine. So you see a bunch of bars and restaurants that started doing to-go orders that can involve alcohol, and so you can order beer through any of your food delivery apps or things like that. As long as you're ordering food, they can bring beer, packaged beer, even a plastic pint with a lid on it. You can order one of those and get that delivered to you. And you can fill up pretty much anything, which is insane. So, a lot of regulations when it comes to growler fills in normal beer world have kind of flown out the window. And then one big thing that I thought was going to affect us a lot as a wholesaler was that local breweries could start delivering product on their own. From our standpoint, we only have a couple like hyper local Nashville breweries, Jackalope being one of them. So it doesn't affect us a lot, but I know a few other distributors that have a handful of Nashville breweries that are pretty popular that can now deliver. You can go to their website, type in, say, hey, I want 2 cases of this, and they throw it in a truck and go. But it's an awesome way to kind of support bartenders. And I know a handful of like supplier reps that really aren't out in the market that are just kind of taking a lot of that stuff on, just to kind of help companies stand and things like that. So it's cool to see how beer has kind of stayed, relevant even in the midst of all this. And Tennessee's kind of done that. The Nashville Beer Board has been very lenient on allowing access to beer, and the liquor stores are it's nonstop. It's crazy.
But it's been a big shift from keg sales now to cases, 6-packs, 12-packs.
Yeah, it's insane. We from a company, we really haven't ordered kegs really since all this started. We've been kind of working through our own keg inventory. We have a handful of bars or growler bars, things like that are still ordering kegs. But the shift is insane.
Yeah.
And then, it's a lot easier to deliver kegs. You pull a keg down, you throw it in the back of the truck, and then you drop it off, than it is to pull 150 cases of, 100 different styles of beer. So it's been a lot of different flexing and kind of just strategic agility and be able to kind of do those different kind of concepts from a day-to-day basis. But yeah, it's insane. It's funny too, because we just expanded our cooler a couple months ago to allow for more keg room. And now, we're not even ordering kegs.
But I will say one thing that Tennessee has over Florida, and we'll talk about your time in Florida here in a little bit, since you did spend several years down here. I don't know if you're from here or not, but you did work at Crooked Can in Winter Garden for 4 years. And I will say, just going to a grocery store, the craft beer selection at Kroger is light years ahead of what you can still find at Publix.
Right.
So is that keeping you? It sounds like that's still keeping you pretty busy.
Yeah. Kroger's are crazy. Publix definitely doesn't put a huge focus on it. We have a couple up here, but Kroger's definitely the dominant one. And then we see Whole Foods and stuff kind of crank through beer. But we have a few local grocery chains, which is kind of neat, like Turnip Truck, which they've got 3 locations now. It's kind of a hipster Whole Foods, I guess. I don't know how to put it, but a very similar kind of clientele and focus on better for you products. But they crank through beer too, which is awesome. So it's kind of neat to be able to see all of those places where people are going to or have to go to get food in these times, be able to find better beer and still be able to kind of pull that and bring it home.
Yeah, it's kind of jealous in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And well, it was funny. So when you were at Crooked Can for 4 years, what exactly did you do there, and what made you decide on the big move up to Tennessee, up to the volunteer state?
I started as the assistant GM, and then my last 2.5 years there, I was the general manager, and so just kind of had my hands in quite a bit of everything, which was awesome. a lot of training and those kind of things, helping production staff with just the styles and kind of menu decisions. And the decision was not necessarily mine, but my wife's. And so she got a really, really cool job opportunity up here. She was working for Disney when we lived down there, doing some product development. And she got a really cool job with an esports company up here as the global production manager.
Oh, wow.
And so she's kind of helping facilitate clothing lines for a bunch of different esports teams. And so kind of rode that train. I was lucky enough to fall on my feet and stay in the beer industry and get a job. I work with it's a Bounty Bev. I don't know if I said that earlier, but that's the distributor up here.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Yeah.
So you went from Central Florida, which has an unknown but starting to burgeon beer scene, to Nashville, which has an unknown but starting to burgeon beer scene.
Yeah, very similar.
Are there a lot of similarities? What are sort of the main differences that you're really seeing between the two, I don't want to say cultures, but regions and scenes?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think they're very, very parallel when you look at them. My perspective changed quite a bit, right? Being with one sole supplier and in four walls for most of my job when I was in Florida at Crooked Can, it definitely kind of blocked a lot of what else was happening, who these people are, where they're putting focus on when it comes to styles or trends and things like that. And then the opposite kind of flipped. I'm up here, so I get to deal with a bunch of regional and national brands. So you kind of get to see, hey, what do they think is going to stick? What are they trying? And then you get to bring it to local. But then being a part of that and being kind of involved in that scene, I'm around a lot more local breweries just in general. So you kind of get to see and get involved, but they're very, very parallel. There's a lot of heavy hitters, people that are focused on super trendy things and doing really, really well. And then there's a lot of people that want to stay true to style, make quality beer over anything else, and do a really good job at doing that. And then one thing that I loved about Crooked Can was how awesome our, tap room and environment and ambiance was. And there's a few places that are really putting a focus on that, especially opening new locations or a second brewery and tap room, and just kind of putting that emphasis there. So they're super similar. Obviously, the laws are crazy different. In Tennessee was behind the times in different aspects than Florida was behind the times.
I would say in Tennessee, you're right in the middle of the Bible Belt now.
Yeah, well, yes, and they're high grab, which was not a term I used a lot when I worked in Florida, but high grab beer used to be like anything over 7% in Tennessee, and you have to have a liquor license and all that kind of stuff, and it's still it's 10 and change now, which is crazy. But there were also it's funny because Good People out of Alabama, phenomenal brewery. Their IPA.
I've had some of their stuff. They're great.
Yeah. Their IPA used to always fall just under that line, whether it did or not. And that's why they kind of got a stranglehold in the market in Tennessee. They actually sell more Good People IPA in Nashville than they do in Birmingham, Alabama, which is crazy, in their home market.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's super similar. I think just the steps to kind of get where they're both at right now were a lot different, but I mean, definitely some years in both cultures and kind of ways of industry right now.
Yeah, I was taking a look. I mean, because you've got Wiseacre, you've got Jackalope, you've got some of those other brands. For the local beers that are sort of in Nashville or in Tennessee as a whole, which are the ones that really stand out to you? Which are the ones that Steve and I should beg and plead for somebody to ship down to us?
Yeah, there's two I would say that are really kind of known for going above and beyond either quality or just eccentric style wise, and that's definitely Bearded Iris and Southern Grist. Southern Grist is very, I want to say, like pastry stout focused, but pastry beers kind of they kind of flourish in a lot of those different styles. They're fun, cool tap room, great people. And then Bearded Iris kind of made their claim to fame with home style, which is hazy IPA. They do it really well, and it is I want to say it's the best-selling IPA in the entire city. I'm probably not wrong. I don't know if that's a fact, but I'm probably not wrong. And they both do such great things. They're always the place to be if they're doing an event. And then I'm a big fan of Blackberry Farm. They're kind of a little bit outside of Nashville, a couple hours almost. Really farm brewery, kind of focus on a lot of farmhouse ales. Their classic Saison is one of my favorite beers. I'm not a big Saison drinker, and I'll pick it. And if you're ever looking for a beer to pair with any food, it's like just go for this. I actually have their IPA, which is awesome. I don't even distribute them, but they're awesome people, and their beer is phenomenal. But yeah, I would say those two for sure. Southern Grist and Bearded Iris are going to be the two that are probably at a lot of your big heavy hitter events. So they're going to be at, your Hunapu Days. Blackberry Farm does a lot of collaborations throughout the country.
Yeah, I've had some of their stuff.
And I want to say they're in Florida a little bit. You might be able to find some of their bonders that have long shelf lives that might make it and kind of sit.
Yeah. I know they used to be at the Lucky's that we had down the street before that closed. So I remember that. The one city in Nashville, or one city in Tennessee, I apologize, that I spent a lot of time in, and I was a big fan of their beer scene, was Knoxville.
Okay.
And they just have a lot of great stuff. I know Sawworks is gone. But is there anything out of there that's distributing? Because really, once you get past the center of the state, the only major distributing beer that I can think of would be Yeehaw out in Johnson City.
Yeah, and they've got Brew Stillery now in Nashville, so they're basically, they're basically local at this point. Knoxville's hard. There's definitely some like outliers in terms of breweries kind of outside the Nashville area, not necessarily Knoxville. Hutton and Smith, which is out of Chattanooga, they're awesome. They make really quality beer. And then Black Horse, they just opened a production facility out in Alcoa, which is kind of, outskirts and stuff like that. They do a vanilla cream ale. If you ever had Anderson Valley Summer Solstice, which is out right now, just vanilla cream ale. It's one of the funkiest beers, like just style wise. It's hard to wrap your head around. You're like, am I drinking cream soda? Should I pour root beer into this? Like, should I put ice cream in it?
Steve, I'm pretty sure I gave you a bottle of that once.
I believe you did, actually.
I think so. Okay. Just the restaurant's phenomenal. Great go-to.
Yeah. And then, but Black Horse, which is Tennessee, almost Nashville, they do a vanilla cream ale. It's really their flagship, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm pulling up. Or wait a minute, am I muted? I'm not muted. Okay, yeah, I'm pulling up. There's one place, Cookville. I remember stopping over and doing a double shot of Red Silo and Hicks Farm, both of which were very, very different, but just bizarrely creative. And it's just not what you expect when you think of Tennessee, because I would assume that most people, if you think of Tennessee beer, it's going to come in a silver bullet or a 24 pack. And it's just not true at all of what's going on in the state. Do you still have a lot of no, we actually have really good beer here. We have a lot of great stuff going on.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Being in Orlando before I was here, I was definitely immersed in a tourist town. But it's definitely a lot different here. But you still have a very similar culture with people traveling to be here. And it's kind of slowly becoming noticeable with the beer industry and even the spirits industry here. But it's hard because Nashville's always going to be a Bud Light town, unfortunately. But part of that is just because they've got Broadway, which is your bars that are just there for live music and pounding cheap drinks, and so it's wrapping your head around the fact that there's more to Nashville than that. There's a lot more to Nashville than just that. Allows you to kind of immerse yourself in what is that burgeoning craft beer scene. But it's taking time. It's going to take more time. But it's there. I mean, it's hard to go places nowadays and not find good beer. But I think people look past it a lot easier in a place like Nashville than they do other places that they might visit. And it's getting to the point where that's not necessarily the case.
Gotcha. So this is a question that I've had for quite some time, actually. From a distributor standpoint, the end purchasers being the grocery stores, the liquor stores, the Total Wine and Mores of the world, kind of. Is there a concern from their end that with breweries that are having to kind of stop operation for the time being, have to furlough their workers, is there a concern that some of the beer is going to run out in terms of the variety that they're used to getting, and we would eventually go towards a shelf of nothing but AB InBev, wolves in sheep's clothing? Or
I think that I had a similar kind of fear with all of this that was happening, and just being in touch with a lot of larger liquor stores at least. They see some of it, but a lot of that's already unfortunately controlled by larger beer companies and larger beer distributors.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, there's also a demand for, smaller local craft, things like that. So when it gets to the point where if I run out of a seasonal, I think there's enough opportunity. And, as much as it would hurt me to say, hey, if I've got a stack of Lovebird in here, that Lovebird placement, if I run out of Lovebird, isn't going to turn into a Yingling or Bud Light placement. That's going to turn into, Blackberry Farm placement and do a stack like that. So I think there's enough demand for those kind of things that even if it's not me or if it's not a brand I represent, that it still falls into that kind of realm of craft or local, independent, those kind of things. There's enough beer, and I think there's enough breweries that have been able to kind of flip business model enough to kind of maintain everything that they need to kind of stay afloat. Obviously, there's going to be some not great outcomes from all of this with smaller breweries and things like that. But I think there's enough that those kind of things won't be as crazy. But from our standpoint, from a wholesaler standpoint, we're going to order less, right? So it's getting to the point where I just say Dogfish Head just released their new seasonal Sunday Feels Beer Mosa Sour. I haven't tried it yet. It looks like it's going to be awesome. Super excited. Normally we would bring in a ton of draft, but we didn't. We brought in a ton of package. And so, if we look at it too, and it's like, this is a seasonal that we were going to reorder regularly and have for the next 3 months, let's say. All of a sudden, we're probably never going to get draft of it. It's that kind of stuff. So, whereas that might not hurt us, and maybe it doesn't hurt these liquor stores, it's probably going to hurt the breweries, and you're probably going to look at bars and restaurants. That I think that's where you're going to see it the most. Is it's going to be bars and restaurants that are getting back open, and they're going to go, hey, what's cheap? What am I going to be able to put on the draft system that I'm going to sell through, make money back, make my bartenders happy, and kind of get my feet back underneath me? I don't think you're going to see that as much as in the off-premise segment.
Gotcha. And that makes perfect sense. Have you heard of a lot of, you had mentioned a lot of small breweries that may be closing. Have you heard of anybody going under yet, or is everybody still relatively above water at this point?
Yeah, nothing that I know of. I think before anything, you'll probably see places start furloughing employees or laying off employees, and that'll be kind of a sign of a place to monitor as things kind of continue. But I haven't seen any of that really here or anything like that. It's been a little bit of status quo. Jackalope's a great example of being able to kind of be flexible. They had a ton of seasonal stuff that they were ready to do that was really going to be draft only, either for their tap rooms or draft out in the market. And they were able to invest into printing their own labels and basically canning everything. And so cans either went to us to then bring to liquor stores and things like that, or cans went to their tap room for them to sell, to go and deliver. And so they've been able to kind of take all this beer that they had planned on releasing that was special, unique, that needed to get out into the market, and being able to flip that and put it into cans and package and can pretty much everything so that they're not sitting on a bunch of draft, or we're not sitting on a bunch of draft.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. So I will leave you with this question that I've been asking everybody, and the answer has been kind of similar, which is funny because I actually shared the same response, but you've been speaking to a lot of breweries, so I am curious as to what you have seen. Obviously, a lot of people have had to make changes, like we discussed, to sort of stay afloat in this bizarre new normal. Is there any one thing that you have seen somebody do that is so amazing that once we get back to normal operation, you want to have stay around and be a part of what craft beer looks like post coronavirus?
Yeah, so I think part of it has been kind of brought up from our beer board. And before, we had no ability to sell to-go beers out of restaurants. And so I think the opportunity that allows for to-go alcohol from those kind of aspects, it really just creates a new outlet for everybody, right? So all these bars, restaurants that are already selling orders to go now have an opportunity outside of this craziness to do it, and especially in the town where people are in Airbnbs all the time. If you're staying here and you're like, hey, I want to get pizza, and you can order a 6-pack IPA with it, why not? And those are things that I think people in responsibility positions in like the beer board and those kind of things will have to look at. They're the same ones that made that decision in the flip of the switch to allow that in this time, and potentially get to a point where that might be the normal. Which I think just allows for people to have access to more things in the beer industry. And so I think there's some good that can come out of it. There's eye-opening opportunities for a lot of this stuff. I think it allows for people to realize that there's probably more important things in beer. I shouldn't say that, but it allows people to focus on the things that are important, and then it drives back to the things that make you happy and bring you joy, which for me at least is beer. So.
I don't think Steve agrees with the whole there are things that are more important than beer.
I was going to say no, it doesn't exist.
Ryan, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know Steve is already planning a trip to Nashville. Yeah. Trust me, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
Just drive, because there's stuff in Nashville and there's stuff all the way in Johnson City, which is you just go across the state like a tornado, and it's just phenomenal beer. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. If you look on Instagram, his handle is The Pursuit of Hoppiness. You can find his handle, his wife's handle, his job's handle, and the handle that they created for their dogs.
Yes.
Because sure, why not?
They're more popular than I am. So.
Oh, that's funny. Sad, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Tomorrow on the Sunshine State Happy Hour, very proud to welcome Carla Jean Lauder, who is at Beer Babe on Twitter, one of the most dynamic voices in craft beer. And I've got some blackmail photos to use, so I'm kind of excited about using the. Oh yeah. Other people have sent them to me, and it's not me. So we'll see what happens. Not me. I'll play my little Shaggy. It wasn't me. We are at FloridaBeerBlog.com, Florida Beer Podcast, wherever fine podcasts are found. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. I do appreciate it. Got a lot of really good stuff, and I kind of miss Tennessee and can't wait to head back. And in the meantime, everybody have a good rest of the day. We'll see you tomorrow. Drink Florida Craft. Bye, everybody.